Dear friends, dear colleagues, dear members of our digital audience. My name is Elise Femgia, and I'm the coordinator of Liveurope, a platform of 16 music venues in 16 European countries who have joined forces with one common commitment: to promote European musical diversity and talent. And today, I'm very happy to welcome you to the third edition of the Liveurope Festival, and our first digital edition, which we have presented under the name Renewing the European Music Scene. It's an absolute pleasure to introduce you to our guest of honor that will open the public part of our event. We are delighted to have among us the European Commissioner for Innovation, Research, Culture, Education and Youth, Mariya Gabriel. Commissioner Gabriel, please take the floor.
Thank you very much, Elise. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, first of all, thank you very much for this extraordinary opportunity for all of us to meet even digitally and to exchange. It's a great honor for me to be together with you, and I must say since the beginning how much Liveurope is a key partner for us in the European Commission. I would like to thank you for your extraordinary job with music venues, promoting the European music in all its diversity. So for me, what is important since the beginning, that's today, given these exceptionally challenging times for the music sector, we really must applaud the organizers, every participant, every person working for and in the sector for making not only this conference happen, but for uniting us. And this event shows exactly that we are united. We are united in our passion for music and in our commitment to safeguard the diversity of Europe's music scene. Because music is humanity's universal language. It holds a unique, creative and cohesive power for societies and for individuals. It is a vital part of our cultural heritage that contributes to our European identity. Music simply brings Europeans closer together. It builds communities, promotes intercultural dialogue, and stimulates cultural tourism. And of course, music generates jobs and growth, offering unique creative careers that add to the cultural wealth of Europe. Now, with the COVID-19 pandemic, undoubtedly, the music sector was faced with an unprecedented situation. That was particularly true for live performances, which incurred significant losses. Venues and festivals had to suspend activities. Artists, their managers, and the huge range of other professionals working in the sector, often self-employed, faced great hardship. And I would like here to pay tribute and to recognize these sacrifices you all have made personally and professionally. And I would like to thank everyone in the music sector for helping Europeans cope with this unprecedented public health emergency. Because indeed, during the pandemic, we all have turned to music to keep our spirits up. From live-streamed pop concerts to online ensemble playing and listening, to apartment block sing-alongs, music has helped us maintain a sense of community at a time where social distancing became the norm. But even before the pandemic, and I think that it's important because the topic of today, it's about an ecosystem, and that's not, we are not building an ecosystem in comparison and because there is one extraordinary situation. Even before the pandemic, many music venues already faced challenges for their operation. Some stemmed from changing music consumption trends, other from changes to the regulatory environment and trends in urban development. And we know that this results in some additional challenges that we need to tackle. We need to provide some more concrete answers to this. Because yet, music venues remain hugely important to local communities and to the music industry. A well-functioning club scene generates rich cultural, economic, and social benefits. And that is why in the European Commission, we pay and will continue to pay particular attention to this part of music sector. First, because music venues boost creativity. The opportunity to perform live plays a crucial role in developing music careers and incubating talents. Live music nurtures creativity, providing a space for original music. And a vibrant music community also attracts talented young people. Second, music venues contribute to economic development. Many musicians are entrepreneurs, and music venues often work as innovation hubs. According to the World Intellectual Property Organization, a vibrant club scene adds value for cities through job creation, tourism development, city branding, and artistic growth. And third, music venues deliver social benefits to local communities where they are deeply rooted. Our analysis shows that the majority of venues manage social and educational activities. They provide different kinds of support. And indeed, live performances in music venues provide unique opportunities for both performers and audiences to develop their networks. And I think that we must take into consideration when we talk about an ecosystem. Now, what the Commission has done first since the beginning of the pandemic. You know that better than me, I'm sure. But yes, it's true that together with my team, first of all, for us it was important to adjust Creative Europe program to the crisis. We applied maximum flexibility in the implementation of the program so that at least the biggest part of our beneficiaries could adapt to these new circumstances. We also sped up the evaluation of 2020 cooperation projects. The budget is 48.5 million euros, so that pre-financing instatement would reach the sector faster. And we launched a new 2.5 million euros call for the cross-border distribution of performing arts works, partly redirecting this financial assistance towards digital distribution. Second, I must say here, thank you very much the European Parliament, because Sabine is with us, and if you have a strong ally, it's about the cultural and creative sectors guarantee facility. I know that there is some objections. I know that not all can use this possibility, but at least it was really important for us to do something in this field, and that's why I'm really glad that we managed with Commissioner Breton, with the European Investment Fund, to identify new COVID-19 measures for businesses under the guarantee facility. And the amount of money is 251 million in total. I hope really that we can take some lessons learned from this experience too. Third, I think that will be one of the main questions today, how to mobilize other instruments at our disposal, how we can create synergies. And we have now, even now at this moment, a very good example. That's the case of our program Erasmus+, because actually we launched an extraordinary call to support skills development, digital competencies, and social inclusion through arts. The aim is to link education, training, and youth stakeholders with cultural and creative grassroots organizations. And for this goal, we mobilized 100 million euro. I invite you really to take a look at these partnerships for creativity. That's how we call them. And the deadline is 29th of October. Of course, that's one thing, Creative Europe with flexibility, with some extraordinary goal, try to speed up and how to create synergies with the other instruments. Another important example, it was that we need more and more horizontal measures. What we have seen during the crisis together with our member states, and that's why I'm glad that together with our ministers of culture, we created a platform where we can exchange good practices, is to see how the different initiatives, state aid rules, Corona Response Investment Initiative, our instrument SURE, the temporary frame, the support to mitigate unemployment risks in an emergency, can be used. Now what I know that not all our member states really use this opportunity. Maybe events like this one are a great opportunity for us to make them more visible, to see what are the good practices and how we can scale them at European level. The third important point for me, and that's my belief that it's our strength, I think that we should continue to promote the platform that we have created by the sector and for the sector. That's Creative Unite platform. Because thousands of users have accessed the platform and have been very dynamic in posting their contributions, especially music stakeholders. The platforms gives access to a multitude of existing resources, relevant networks and organizations. My question today is, what's about to transform this platform in a permanent mechanism of exchanging, scaling projects, and continue together with you, Liveurope, not only to attract our talents, but to support them in this moment and those moments where our support is much more needed. Now, nevertheless, I know that the music sector is quite specific. And yes, there are a lot of gains to be had from synergies with the rest of the cultural field, but such a specific industry requires specific measures. And for that, we have Music Moves Europe. We continue now to implement our Music Moves Europe 2019 preparatory action, allowing now more flexibility for projects to adapt to current circumstances. Actually, we are completing the evaluation of funding calls for professionalization and training and cooperation of small music venues, and we'll be able to communicate the results very soon. For the two remaining and recently closed calls in music education and learning and co-creation and co-production schemes, we have witnessed unprecedented interest, and we are working hard to communicate the results this autumn. We have also adapted the call on European music exports to the new situation. It just closed yesterday, and we are curious to see what applicants have proposed. But we cannot just look at what is immediately in front of us. We need to plan for the future, because recovery is not going to be easy. We need medium and long-term actions to strengthen the resilience of the music sector. And that's why we have refocused the 2020 Music Moved Europe preparatory actions. We have redesigned the entire 2.5 million budget for this year, and we decided to focus on one call on the sustainability of our music ecosystem. We have broken this down into 3 focus points for recovery. First, a green recovery. We must increase the sector's environmental sustainability and ecological awareness. This is especially true for live acts, festivals, and touring, and it also means supporting innovative startups, aiming at decreasing the environmental footprint of online data storing and music distribution. Second, a digital recovery. We have to adapt to the emerging trends in digital music consumption, distribution, and promotion. Take, for example, live music acts online, and develop and promote sustainable business models that guarantee the remuneration of artists. You know how this topic is close to my heart when I was digital commissioner, and that will continue the case. Because digital recovery involves the development of technology-driven products and services in music production, promotion, and distribution, as well as empowering artists to be competitive and resilient in an increasingly technology-driven market. Third, a just a resilient recovery. Music is a cohesive force. It brings us together, and so it can foster solidarity and active citizenship. We need a stronger community role for music venues, better access to music both in terms of education and consumption, with a special focus on disadvantaged group, fairer remuneration for artists, and a more equal gender balance. In addition to our European funding, we also decided to strengthen our Music Moves Europe dialogue. It is important for me and my team to meet with the sector to exchange on the impacts of the crisis and to continue to identify together the needs and the solutions in the short, medium, and long term. And it is also important that we broaden this dialogue and involve representatives from our member states, from other institutions, from regions. So, ladies and gentlemen, I started this speech by looking at the effects of COVID in the music industry, looking at our immediate action at European level, both horizontal and specific, but what is left? To look to the future. So let us turn to see for some of the next weeks and months and the importance of our programs. Of course, first Creative Europe programs, but here, you know what is my position. Of course, that it's a regrettable decision, the budget for the Creative Europe program, and the European Parliament is represented very well here. I think that we must continue to stay mobilized by the very end of this process. The second is immediately to see what's about the place of culture and music in the next generation, in our recovery plan. And here I very much welcome the resolution voted by the European Parliament, because we need here to overcome the main challenges that are facing. We need the sectors to reap the benefits of the digital shift, adapt to a more globalized, competitive world, but that means that we need more financial support. And that's why I think that it's one of the main questions today, how really to use the different funds at our disposal in order to increase the support for the music sector and to help the sector to build a real ecosystem. And that's why here I would like to say that in our program, Creative Europe program, what we would like to see, and that was one of the novelty introduced, it's a sectorial approach. The midterm review of Creative Europe highlighted that the current program was not addressing the specific needs of some key cultural and creative sectors, including music, sufficiently well. The Music Moves Europe initiative has indeed confirmed that a sector-specific approach is necessary to enhance the impact of Creative Europe. And I think that this is an opportunity that we should discuss. What's about this need to meet the sector's needs in a more targeted way, digital challenges, environmental challenges, gender balancing. And these challenges, they are demanding sector-specific answers. And I think that here, together with the other panelists, it will be important to see what are the instruments at our disposal in order to be more focused and to propose more concrete answers. Something completely new, because I think that we should continue to work in synergies, not only with Creative Europe and the structural funds and next generation, but even with my own portfolio. There is some new opportunities. Think about Horizon Europe program. For the first time, there will be something completely new, our missions. And I'm very glad, because during our research innovation days this week, when I received the final reports of our missions on climate neutrality, smart cities, water, soil, or cancer, there is a particular attention with our creative and cultural sectors, and I think that maybe here it's time to identify more concrete actions. To conclude, we'll continue to fight for a strong Creative Europe and for its sector-specific approach to support music. Nevertheless, our actions cannot be limited to this program. Culture is about connections, and so it must play an important role in the next multi-annual financial framework, the European Recovery Plan, also through the Europeans' major funding instruments such the structural funds, the Horizon Europe, the InvestEU. Because after all, COVID-19 outbreak has shaken our way of life. It has forced us to rethink the way we socialize, from the personal level to the level of our cultural and music ecosystems. The situation is certainly not easy, but thanks to people like you, engaged, knowing what's happened on the ground, with visions, with examples of not only good ideas, but good concrete projects, I know that we'll persevere together. And that's my message today. Continue to make us dreaming, and I would like to wish you a very inspiring discussions today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Gabriel, for this very enlightening keynote and very inspiring words. I think you mentioned something that is quite interesting at the beginning of your speech, which is to say that we need to be united to safeguard the diversity of our music scene. And that is very much at the core of our platform and our festival. Our common conviction that together as a group, we are stronger to boost Europe's rich music scene and to give a stage to its many talents. With this event, we also wanted to take the benefit of using this digital format to open its participation and reach beyond our network to include a diverse range of stakeholders in the music value chain. Together, we want to lay the foundations for a more desirable future for the sector and discuss what is needed to better support our European music ecosystem and help European artists to break beyond their national borders. And maybe one of these ways is to scale and to scale up existing platforms as suggested by Commissioner Gabriel. One of these ways could also be to use a sectorial approach to better safeguard the music scene. This is also the perfect transition for our panel discussion today, where we will tackle the perspectives for the recovery of the European music sector due to the current crisis. We have a very diverse and interesting panel of speakers today to discuss these most urgent challenges. So with no further ado, I will leave the floor to our moderator for the next hour, Fabien Miclet, EU Affairs Consultant in Music and Culture, who also happens to be the former coordinator of our platform. Fabien?
Thank you, Elise. And a big thank you to the Liveurope platform for holding this event today. Quite a unique format for such an event. Thank you very much also to you, Commissioner Gabriel, for those very inspiring words. I believe you covered a lot of ground on the topic. And now the goal of this conversation we're about to have is to go a little bit further down this topic. So I will briefly introduce things if you don't mind. So as you all know, the COVID-19 crisis has a massive impact on the music sector and on live performance in particular. Some projections mention a loss of 90 to 95% of turnover for the sector. Now, albeit necessary to protect the health of the most fragile and to preserve our hospital capacities in Europe, these restriction measures, in particular for the live venues and the live festivals, have put hundreds of thousands of people in a very precarious situation, people who simply cannot work. And it's not just any work, if I may say. The live music sector provides something that not many other businesses do. It gives people the joy of enjoying a work of art performed in real time, but it also brings people together in a warm, dreamlike, shared experience, which makes live music so valuable. I'm sure you will all agree in the audience that this sector needs to be safeguarded, preserved, and placed in the best possible conditions to resume fully when the time comes. But how do we do that? What tools, what measures do we need to rebuild the music ecosystem in Europe after this crisis? In order to answer this question, we have a panel joining us today who will give the audience some keys to understand how the problem is considered at sectorial, national, and above all European levels in this new context that we are going through. So before I introduce the speakers, let me just remind you that this is live on the Facebook page of Liveurope. You can ask questions in real time. You will be able to add some comments under the video, and we'll try to pick up a few of your questions at the end of the conversation. Also, don't forget that tonight after this talk, you'll have 12 concerts for free, also on the Liveurope social networks, 12 bands playing from 12 different countries. So it's really going to be a really fantastic event. I think Commissioner Gabriel is going to leave us now. I would like to thank her again very warmly for her words for us today and this wonderful keynote. And without further fuss, it is my pleasure to introduce today's speakers. I'll briefly introduce every one of you and then ask you some questions about your position in this new context. So Nayara Lassa, I am very pleased to introduce you. You work as close as possible from the stage. You are the programmer of Barcelona's legendary concert venue Sala Apollo, which is a venue that is part of the Liveurope program, Liveurope platform hosting us today. You've also worked in the past with Primavera Sound, one of Europe's most praised festivals. You will give us the perspective really from the ground, from the live scene. Virgo Sillama, you're currently the coordinator of the European Music Exchange, Music Export Exchange, sorry, a platform of more than 20 national organizations across Europe, which mission is to promote and to facilitate the cross-border circulation of European music. Until recently, you were the director of Music Estonia, one of the members of EME. EME is the acronym for European Music Export Exchange. And just now you've moved from Tallinn to Brussels, if I'm not mistaken. Our third panelist is Jean-Philippe Thiellet, who is the president of the French National Music Center, or CNM. It's a brand new organization bringing together a wide range of stakeholders of the music sector in France, public and private, with the mission to support, to reinforce, and to provide funding to the French music ecosystem. So music is definitely his family, because before taking on this important job, among other things, he was the deputy director of the Paris Opera. He also wrote several books on some of Europe's most praised music composers. And also the CNM holds an important place in the European landscape, because France has the presidency of EME, this network of export organizations. And last but not least, MEP Sabine Verheyen, very glad to have you on this panel. MEP Verheyen, this is your third term as a member of the European Parliament, where you represent the European Popular Party. Last year, you were elected as the chair of the Parliament's Committee on Culture and Education, which means that European public policy and funding in the field of music holds no secrets for you. You're one of the strongest supporters of the music sector at the European Parliament, and you will tell us more about this in a few minutes, I'm sure. So welcome, everyone. Thank you very much for doing this with us today. And let's start, if you agree. I just wanted to start by asking all the panelists about their initial reaction to this weird moment that we've all went through in the month of March, where everything kind of stopped and where public gatherings couldn't be possible anymore. Nayara Lassa, I will ask you the first question. What was it like to be confronted to this lockdown and the suspension of live music activities from inside a concert venue where you work, which normally programs international bands on a nightly basis?
Hi. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me. It's really a pleasure to be with all of you and to be here in Liveurope Festival. First, just to make myself clear, when I will be talking about music venues, I refer myself to small grassroots venues and medium-sized venues. I'm not going to talk about big arenas or big concert halls or opera houses. So actually, the days before the lockdown, there was no sense of danger at all. It was really strange because we worked perfectly well. Nightclub was full. Concerts were going brilliant. So actually, when on the 14th of March, when the state of alarm was declared, it was like a shock. We knew we have to close, but it was like nobody sensed that before, right? So because of that sense, we thought it was going to be for a short term. which we thought, okay, we're going to close for 1 month, 1.5 months. So we all went on technical layoff, unemployment. That was the first measure the government settled. And then we all went, except of course for an account and a person that had to reschedule all those concerts that day to day they had to, to put on forward. So we all went, and we were looking really strange. We were shocked, but with no big deal. What happened 1 month later? 1 month later, we started to realize there was going to be for a long term. There wasn't a lockdown only for 1 month. So first, we asked for eco credits from the Institute for Official Credit from the government in order to face the costs we had. So basically, we started to have two problems. First, we realized that on technical layoff, it works for employees that have permanent full-time contracts, but in the music sector and in music venues, this is the less people that have those contracts. Most people have partial or part-time contracts. They are paid per hours, or they are self-employed. So if no big measures were coming from the government for those people, it was going to be really hard for every one of us. And second, the second problem is that we really faced, the equation was very easy. We were closed with zero income, but we had costs. The equation is very easy, it's easy to know. Which cost were we facing? Well, 98% of the venues in Spain are private companies, and they don't own the venue, so they pay rentals. So the costs are the rentals, the parts of the social security of the employees, supplies, of course, credits, very important. So we knew that every month that we were going to get close, we were digging a bigger hole without having any income. So that was really, that we really started to shake us, that started to shake us a lot. And third, and very important as well, the culture wheel had stopped. And we said, if this is going to be for a long term, very strong part of the industry will disappear, because no artists can play, no promoters, and etc. So facing those three problems, we started to gather we work in associations in a regional level, and of course in a national level as well. And we said, okay, we got together and said, what is our picture? We have to go to the administration and say, hey, we've been closed for a few months. This is our loss. This is these are the number of employees that aren't working, etc. So we wanted to sit with the administration and say, okay, let's gather data, and this is our picture. This is what we need. Take our hand and start to listen to us. Start to regulate with us as well. Yeah, that was a big challenge for us, because normally in the music sector, we don't have all that data, so it was very hard to collect. We needed to work as well with the administration in order to push and to seek for other palliative measures that we told them, okay, we need this, and this. And of course, to negotiate the future reopening. Of course, that is very important as well. So that was our first push, and what helped us a lot was also having Liveurope as for us, the venue, for Apollo, and for all of us, because we had with Liveurope, we started at the very first moment to get in contact and to see what was happening. What's happened? How are you dealing with this crisis? How are you dealing with your local administration? So we didn't feel alone. It was very important to see how other venues in different parts of Europe were, facing all that. So that was how we faced it. We struggled. We got together, and yeah, we wanted to push administration and to see and to tell them, hey, we're here. Please take us on account. You don't have your microphone.
Yeah, sorry. It was a struggle, but a struggle is always better fought together. You'll tell us more about this in a few minutes. Jean-Philippe Thiellet, you have been nominated at the head of the CNM on the 1st of January this year, this new organization in France. So a couple of months in your new position and after the establishment of this institution, the crisis hit. How did you feel?
I feel concerned because even if in France we have the luck to have a strong state which is really conscient about the importance of the culture and of the music in particular, and which was able to involve a lot of money in culture for the workers and especially for the music, still I'm concerned because I'm not sure that the worst is behind us. I'm quite convinced about the contrary. So we have to be concentrated and really effective, which is pretty tough for a very young institution.
Thank you very much, Jean-Philippe Thiellet, for your first intervention. Virgo Sillama, you work at European level. You coordinate this platform called EME. So your job basically is to support the cross-border circulation of European music. How did you manage, when borders in Europe suddenly closed without any visibility for reopening?
Hello, everyone. Thanks for inviting me on the panel as well. So I'll start with a personal note. At that time in March, I was still managing also Music Estonia, as you mentioned in your introduction. And just to give you a similar psychological profile that Diana mentioned, on Monday in middle of March, we decided to postpone the Tallinn Music Week conference, where Music Estonia also contributes to the programming. So we're part of the team. On Monday, it felt like a really forward-looking decision. On Friday, we were in quarantine. Everything was locked down. It happened so fast. I think the entire sector was stunned. I don't come up with a better word. So it took some days, some weeks even for the different kinds of professionals, especially artists, to realize what the new situation was. In EME, where we have always kept a very active contact between each other, I think the first weeks, all of the organizations who are members of EME, who usually work towards developing the export angle of things, needed to really fast reorientate themselves. And many of them, including Music Estonia and Estonia, we needed to become the first level of defense for the entire music sector of the industry, because a lot of the private industry is not collectively organized. They don't have a voice, that there's no dialogue between the ministry and for example, private music companies, etc., etc. So that needed to be organized in many countries over Europe. We did set up very quickly an inside working document between the export offices, where we just gathered information and kept each other informed in terms of what's going on, what are the measures, if somebody's doing interest representation, how are they doing it, what kind of arguments are they using, what kind of methods are being proposed and used. So we had a very quick best practice exchange, if you will, going on. And I think that definitely supported each other. So we, as organizations, many of us treading totally new ground from the export office perspective into the sector representation perspective. So I would say the sector was stunned. Our attention was how to come up with immediate measures to keep the sector going somehow. Maybe we all understood in the first weeks that export is not going to be on everybody's minds in the weeks of the lockdown, in the months But I think in the beginning we were quite optimistic in terms of that this needs to be a short-term, quick reaction period. Now, of course, as Jean-Philippe also said, we realize that we need medium long-term solutions, and the outlook is quite different. So maybe that's my quick take on how we felt at the first weeks and months of the pandemic.
Thank you, Virgo. Before giving the floor to MEP Verheyen, I just wanted to go back to Jean-Philippe Thiellet's experience, because what you mentioned, Virgo, here is the necessity to bring together all the different families, so to say, of the sector. In France, this was quite a new way to operate, if I'm not mistaken. How did this unity in the sector allow for a quicker or a better or more efficient reaction, Jean-Philippe Thiellet?
Yeah, what was very interesting and why we didn't create the Centre National de la Musique for more than 40 years, that's a very old project, is that the industry is very divided between classical and pop music, between recorded music and live music. And the strength of this project that the French government and the French parliament finally set on is to unite all the stakeholders. I think that the French experience could be helpful everywhere in Europe. I'm convinced, and what's happened now in France demonstrate that, is that it's easier to get more money, to get more help when we are united, because for the artist and for the audience, there is a kind of continuity. The audience and the artist don't see all those verticality. It's from the creation to the diffusion, from the composer to the editor, extra, there is a continuity. And so it's very useful to have a one system talking to everyone. That's the French experience. And in this emergency period, it's really useful.
Thank you very much. Indeed, it looks like bringing the sector together is the initial reflex that a lot of organizations have taken. Sabine Verheyen, you are the chairwoman of the Culture Committee of the European Parliament. What was your initial reaction since the EU was quite taken by surprise by this crisis? Some member states decided to go their own way, closing borders. How did you mobilize the European Parliament to react to this shock?
First, we also were shocked because we had to stop suddenly traveling to Brussels. We had not the possibilities from the first moment to have the exchange we needed to react on the crisis, because we also had to set up to build technical tools to come to work again. I'm living direct to the Dutch and Belgian border. When the Belgian borders were closed, the first question was, how can I come back to work? How can we do this? It was a surprise on the one hand, and I was shocked how fast the different sectors were impacted by these lockdowns in such a crucial way. I got already a few weeks after the lockdowns, I got calls from the sector, from the different parts, from the venues, from the live performance musicians, what they should do, even because they even were not partly allowed when they were playing, for example, trumpet or clarinet or something where they had to breathe or to sing. They were not allowed to do that. They couldn't even give lessons to their pupils, and it was really a difficult situation for them, because, like it was already said, from one moment to the other, all incomes were locked down. There was nothing what you could do. And the support schemes, we also directly started from the European level. The SURE program, for example, to support member states for loss of income, to help companies that they can pay their workers when they are in Germany we call it Kurzarbeit, short working time, but that did not fit to the sector, and that was shocking me, that we had many support schemes also on the national level, but they didn't reach the sector. And that was the moment where we said also in Parliament we need more tailor-made support schemes especially for music, but also for other sectors in the cultural and creative industries. And we started then to raise the awareness also to the other colleagues who are not involved in the cultural politics as much. And the first shocking experience I made was when we had a meeting, and I came up with the figures of the whole cultural and creative sector, where I said 4.2% of the GDP in the European Union is directly depending to cultural and creative industries. 7 up to 8 million people working in these sectors. And colleagues told me, oh, we didn't know that. We never saw that it's such a big sector, and that this sector has such a big impact to the GDP, because what was already said, you have self-employed people, you have micro-enterprises, small and medium-sized enterprises. It's not the big plant that closes down with 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 workers. That is a silent dying of institutions, a silent dying of jobs, a silent dying of income for people and families. And that is something where I said we have to raise our voices, and we directly went into contact, came into contact with Mariya, Gabriel and Thierry Breton to think about how can we support from the European level, the national schemes, how can we find tailor-made solutions out of the existing programs? What is the European Union already doing and supporting, and how can we bring the awareness that very often the schemes we have also on the European level don't fit concretely to the music or to other sectors in the cultural and creative industries. And that was the moment when we started becoming loud. When we started publicly with press releases, with discussions in the parliament, with motions for resolutions to raise awareness. Please take a look. This sector is important. It's so important for our societies, so important also for the people to overcome the crisis. Without music, without the possibility to enter music, also digital, it would have been very difficult also from the psychological side for people being closed up in their houses, in their flats over weeks. How could you spend your time reading a book, listening to music, watching movies? It was mainly these cultural and creative industries that made these times of lockdowns somehow life-worthy for people, because otherwise there would have been nothing. So I think what came up was more and more the awareness also to colleagues in the parliament who are not addicted to culture like cultural politicians, that culture and the cultural and creative industries, and specifically also the music industry, is system relevant, like we say. So we need it. It's not nice to have, it's we have to have it. And that was the start for our engagement. We had in the parliament first to find solutions together with the Commission for fast support. But what we also saw that we have quite big differences between the different member states. It was already said, France, for example, or Monika Grütters in Germany, they made big efforts to support the sectors, also tailor-made solutions in some cases. But it was not in all the member states the possibility that the governments could support the culture and creative, and especially the music sector, in the way that was needed. And when I take a look to the future, what's going on at the moment, we cannot see when it will end. We have now a starting of a second wave, perhaps with additional lockdowns. We have to see what the winter will bring. And then we have again a situation out of this very weak economical position the sector has at the moment due to the crisis. We have to react in a way, and we have to enable other ways of getting income for the sector. And it's not just the musician, not just the organizer of a venue, not just those who are directly linked to the music. That's also those who are behind stage, those the technicians that are working there, those who are responsible for the light machines, those who are responsible for the makeup, for the hair, for the construction, for the gastronomical part around a venue and around a festival or something like that. It has a much bigger impact than many people think, and we have to help the sector in a very strong way to come back and to find solutions also during the crisis for the next time until we have a vaccination, to find ways and models how we can help the sector to come back again.
Thank you very much, Ms. Verheyen. I see that once again in your words and in your approach, the idea of bringing together this ecosystem to respond together is quite an important aspect. This is really something that a lot of people, I think, realized, and you underline this in your words now, during this lockdown, that it's not only the music you listen to on Spotify, it's not only the music you listen to when you go to a concert once a year. It's really a huge ecosystem of hundreds of thousands of millions of jobs and people's lives depending on it. And the awareness raising that you provided at the European Parliament, it must have led to some emergency responses, at least initially, in the first phases of the crisis. That's what I wanted to talk to you about now, with really the feeling you had after the first emergency measures were implemented. For instance, in Barcelona, so 6 months after the beginning of this crisis, Nayara, are you supported through emergency mechanisms? And how do you engage with public authorities in order to be supported in this immediate moment?
We're closed. We are all closed. There's no possibility to do live concerts in any venue in Barcelona right now. So 6 months later, we are like the 14th of March. The thing is that now we battle in two directions as well. One, we are battling with local authorities in order to open on any type of format. I mean, any type. Of course, with social distance, with chairs, with tables, but to open, to at least start the wheel, start the wheel again. So artists can play, people can come to the venue, etc. But that is not possible right now. And all that work with local government and the regional government, when you sit with them, you see that they are very, very far away from you. They don't really understand how you work or what you do, because they try to regulate our activity, but they tell us they want us to open. That's fine, that's really great. And something absurd happened. And for instance, we can open, you can do a live performance, a live show, a music live show in venues that only have the license of music venues, right? That's okay. The thing is that no one has that license. So we're close. So why all these policymakers don't even know that that license is really brand new? And what the license we have in the music venues are the old license, and that doesn't work. So we're banned, we cannot open. So that is so absurd, and that things happen, on a daily basis. And you see how far away they are, or how far away all these regulations are from the real world, right? So that is that is one fight. We want to open in a small format, but it's not the solution, because the solution, we know, if we open in a small format, we are a venue of 1,600 capacity, and with chairs we will only reach 300. So we know it's not the solution, but it's something. I mean, at least some employees will begin to work, some artists will play, people can come, you start the wheel again. And then the other fight is for a rescue plan, because those big problems that I mentioned before, and one is the big hole that we are digging every month, is getting bigger. And if something is not done before 2021, some of the venues and smaller venues that haven't got any financial capacity or any financial muscle will close forever. With all what that means. I mean, if you close a grassroots venue, there is no possibility for emerging artists to perform. No local scene cannot work. So there's a lot to lose if we let them totally abandoned. So we want a rescue plan. What is the rescue plan that we are actually asking for? Is that if we have to be closed because of the lockdown or because of the pandemic, okay, we're closed, but with zero costs. That's it. Okay, we are closed, but we're not digging our own hole, right? So that is an important issue. And the other important issue that we are fighting against is there is a campaign. There has been a campaign of criminalization of the sector. The central government did this really hard campaign comparing venue with death, or regional government as well, with a festival bracelet, with the bracelet of a hospital. So those, you know, it's very hard, because on the people, the people just perceive that it's not good to go to a venue, it's not good to you know, to go to a concert anymore. So that we are fighting against that. We want to say, hey, we can be, and we are, secure spaces, because we can we can leave the social distance, and we control people that come in, we control people that come out, and it's much better than all the illegal parties that are going on. So we are paying our taxes, we just want some kind of activity. That's what we are saying, and that's our fights right now.
Nayara,
yeah,
can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you very much. This is quite a lot of ground that you've covered already. We'll still have some time for you to explicit exactly like the direction in which you want the authorities to go to support Barcelona's Sala Apollo. But can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. But okay, I just had a quick blip. But
No.
In order for everyone to be able to describe the situation in terms of emergency measures in their own setups or on their own countries, I just want to continue giving the floor to all the panelists, and we'll come back to you, Nayara, in a second moment of the conversation. Turning to you, Jean-Philippe Thiellet, the CNM in France has advocated for the unlocking of an emergency budget for music, specifically at national level in France. So could you describe briefly for the audience the conditions in which this package was negotiated, and how it will be mobilized in order to mitigate the emergency?
Yes, first of all, there were national measures announced by the government regarding every workers in France. That's activité partielle. So it's a kind of financial support for every worker in any sector who wasn't able to work. And that was valid, obviously, in the music sector. But what was particular to music is the various emergency funds that we created in the Centre National de la Musique in March the 23rd, so less than 1 week after the containment. That's more or less 50 million euros that we involved with only one goal: to avoid bankruptcies and to help the company's cash flow. It's not restarting, it's not green industry, it's not, it's only to avoid bankruptcy. And in this day, I must say that there is no bankruptcy in the music industry in France. And I hope that tomorrow, next week, next month, I will be able to say that again. By the end of this year, we will have provided little more than 100 million euros only to help the company's cash flow. What is pretty new is the new government in France in the last day of August tried to help the restart of the live industry, and we will I will organize next Monday a board of the Centre National de la Musique with the state, with representative of the government, with stakeholders from collecting rights societies, organization of workers. We are 26 in the board, and the board will adopt a pretty new measure which will compensate the loss due to not tickets sold due to distanciation and containment. In your example, Naya, if you from 1,600 are obliged to go to 300 because people have to be seated, such a measure could help you to compensate the gap between the 300 sold tickets to 1,600 or 200. That's 40 million euros to help shows to be organized in the next week, shows that wouldn't be organized without this compensation help. I'm not sure that we will have a lot of shows between September and December, and even in the beginning of 21, but I'm sure that entrepreneur companies association which take the risk will be helped to take the risk and to help people to get back in venues. Obviously, if next week there are new police regulations that make that absolutely impossible, there is no financial support possible. The health and the police regulation comes first. But really, with the loans, with the social measures, and with those special measures for entrepreneurs in the music industry, I think that it's a good way to help to go through this very tough period.
Thank you very much, Jean-Philippe Thielet. So, if I understand correctly, France deployed quite an arsenal, quite a toolbox to support in this very urgent moment the whole ecosystem, and to try to make sure that those small companies, those artists, individual performers, small labels, everybody could survive, in simple words, during this very troubled moment. But that's France, that's at national level. I'm curious to know, Virgo, you work for an organization that encourages cross-border circulation, so export and really the internationalization of careers of artists. The concept of export has been completely redefined right now, because borders were closed and because international tours are de facto stopped, and it doesn't really look like it's going to resume soon. So how do you redeploy as an organization that provides guidance for international export? How do you redeploy your activities in such a situation?
Well, I think there's two ways of looking at our level where we work with European Music Exporters Exchange. First is the interaction between the national the organizations, basically exchanging experiences, crafting new types of connection using digital means. And the second one is to ask what can be done fully on a European level that's above the national level. And I think the second one kind of is addressed through as the commissioner also mentioned, the call for implementation of the different kinds of export activities foreseen in the European Music Export Strategy. So this is the level that we can talk about what Europe can do, European Commission can do through tailor-made programs, etc. But on the national level, international, let's say, between the national levels, that's where IMI is very much working. I think, of course, as I said before, many of the organizations turn their faces to help the local level, because when we talk about export, export is not a separate sector of music. It's a function of a healthy music ecosystem on a local level and on a global level. So in order to reach out with your hands and head and your heart into cross-border export activities, you need to have feet on your ground. And in the metaphor, that means a strong, robust ecosystem on the national level. So of course, we needed to take care of that as well. But very quickly, relatively quickly, initiatives started to pop out. For example, Country Connections is a informal network of export initiatives and offices globally that started to have meetings simply to keep the professionals talking to each other so that the networks wouldn't wither, because that's really important, especially if we're in this for the long term. We need to keep the networks alive somehow. And this is basically just talking houses where people meet. It's everybody knows it's not B2B meetings. Nobody's going to book an artist tomorrow or maybe next month. It's about just keeping the connectivity going. Another good example I would bring is an initiative called Global Music Match. It's basically an initiative from several export organizations, both from Europe and outside, in the folk and world music sector, where they brought in a number of artists from each country and organized a system where it's an artist-to-artist new kind of relationship. An Estonian artist working with a Scottish artist, and they're representing this artist to their own fans in their own country. So this builds new types of ways that the local digital communities talk to each other. And I think these are the initiatives that we need to look into more, all the while figuring out how to plan actual trade missions, how to plan moving people physically in a way, in a hybrid way, and really analyzing the strategies where both artists and managers and everybody around them, but also export organizations doing the more strategic work or funding programs around them, enable that kind of hybrid new kinds of strategies where we don't only think about let's get artists to a showcase across the sea. We also have to think about what elements can be done digitally efficiently, maybe even more efficiently, and what then can still be done physically, hopefully at some point. So I hope that kind of answers the question. I think it's a very ongoing process at the moment.
It absolutely does answer the question. It was a very broad analysis. Thank you very much, Virgo. The hybrid solution is a term that really comes back again and again these days in the conversation. And actually, this event is one way for European talents to be exported. I'll just remind the audience that after this chat, there are concerts in 12 different European venues live of 12 different artists from 12 different countries. And this is all online. So there is creativity to be added to the mix in order for internationalization to actually keep the spark on. Turning to you, MEP Verheyen, more on the reaction from a political point of view. Last week or 2 weeks ago, the European Parliament, and you were very involved in this struggle, in this fight, adopted a joint resolution, which is a very important text about European cultural recovery. So if you could say a few words about this and how, in terms of immediate mitigation of the crisis, how this could really have an impact in the next couple of years.
I think first it is important also to be able to support all these wonderful ideas we were talking about already, to help the sector come back again, also with a slow coming back. You said in Barcelona it's not allowed to make any concert. In some other member states they take another way in opening up slightly to give possibilities to make live concerts again. But all these projects, all these things need support. And that was the reason why one of the core points we were asking for in this resolution is to raise the budgets first for the Creative Europe program, which was reduced by the Commission and the Member States as a proposal for the next MFF. And we want to reallocate at a minimum the money we had in the past, but the Parliament is asking for a doubling, because we also need money in the long term to help the sector in the change that is necessary, also to give possibilities for hybrid solutions, for new ways of distribution, for additional possibilities also to get not just concerts for free online, but also reimbursed structured, because people in the music sector cannot live from air. They need something to eat and to drink and a place to live. And so they need to get money out of what they do, what they create, what they are doing. And at the moment, culture is seen as a nice benefit that I can use on the internet, because that what we get back from the streaming services is not that covers the losses we have, that no live concert can take place. And many musicians are depending on live performances as an additional income. And I think that we should not forget, we cannot replace everything with digital solutions. We also need the other parts, because people are willing also to pay for a live concert, but to have similar prices for an online concert that is performed live, I think that will become quite difficult. So what we want is first to have a doubling for the program for the next 7 years, because we need a sustainable work on this sector and not just a push now after the crisis, but in addition to be sure that the member states also invest in the sector now during the crisis and for the recovery. We ask for a 2% share of the Next Generation EU, the 750 billion euro program the member states decided on, which is not finally decided, because we have to find an arrangement between member states and parliament on the European level. And that is our chance when we get an earmark of 2% for the cultural and creative sectors. Then we can find tailor-made solutions for the sector to support the recovery, to support new ideas, to support the comeback of the sector in and after the crisis. And I think that's very important, because my big fear is that other sectors like the automobile industry or other industries, steel industry and whatever, even they might not be attached by the crisis, attacked by the crisis, like the cultural and creative, and specifically the music sector. They have a stronger voice. And we already said that before. We have such a diverse and split situation in the different creative sectors that to hear what's really going on is quite difficult, because everyone has different problems to the others. And what we have to raise awareness for is that we need, for the whole sector, because of its economical and societal meaning it has for Europe, that we need a special support for this. And that is the asking for the 2% earmark for the cultural and creative sector out of the recovery fund, which would be much more money than we ever had on European level to support the cultural and creative sector and also the music sector. Another point is, in the program we are discussing with the member states to have a special mentioning of the music sector in the programs. Also there, some member states are still not thinking why we need a special mentioning of the music sector. And we as Parliament always try to explain that in the past, there was really a lack in programs that were specifically addicted to that sector, and that we need a special mentioning so that the Commission has the possibility to make special programs for this sector. And we are fighting for that. We are fighting for that during the negotiations on the next MFF and the Recovery EU, Next Generation EU program. And I was so happy that we got such a broad support in the Parliament for that, because that was not given from the first beginning of the discussions we had, that we get such a big support with just a few members voting against and a few members abstaining. It was a huge, unique support in the parliament we got for this, and now we hope that this signal is also heard in the member states when it comes to the negotiations, that they really take part of this money they get out of this fund to support the sector, to come back, to find tailor-made solutions, and to come back on what our colleague from Barcelona said. I cannot understand that they do not really listen to the specific needs in the sector and the solutions that are proposed. What we did, for example, in the member state I do come from, the part state North Rhine-Westphalia, for example, was they sat together with the cinemas, they sat together with the music venues and discussed how can we come back? How is it possible to secure the social distancing during a live concert? What kind of music can be made? Can I do something outside? Can I do something inside? How can it be organized? And to find really tailor-made solutions, also depending on the venues, is crucial at the moment to have the possibility to come back and to use the general structures of health protection in a flexible way, not to stretch it to the detriment of your health, but to find a solution that respects the needs out of these general regulations, but to be flexible in how it is implemented in concrete, depending on the venue. And I think that is something where I would have wished that there would be a possibility also on the European level to coordinate more such situations, to help also member states. How is it done in other, to have a platform on a better exchange, especially for local and regional governments, in the exchange on how to deal with the problem, because the health problem is similar. The way how to infect in this crisis with Corona is similar in each member state, but how to solve on the one hand the problem of the needs of the sector and the needs of the health structure. I think there we could have a much better exchange than we had in the past. And I hope that we find common solutions, and that the sense of having exchange and looking what are others doing, how are others doing things well, would be a solution also for local and regional governments. And I will take that with me to the further work to have perhaps an impact also in the committee of the regions, where they also have a culture committee, to bring this awareness of these problems and the need for better exchange also between local governments and regions in how they deal with these special problems in the music live sector. Perhaps that is an input I can take with me for the discussions I will have in the next weeks.
Thank you so much, Ms. Verheyen, and thank you for the work you've been doing on behalf of the cultural sector, on behalf of the music sector. A wide range of leads, of potential keys to unlock some of the issues that the music sector is currently facing. We still have a dozen minutes to go through something that I really wanted to ask you all, dear panelists, more like your long-term perspective on how we are going to get either stronger or weaker from this unprecedented crisis as a sector, as an ecosystem. So I would like to just ask a first question in this perspective of how to rebuild basically a more resilient sector for the future. My first question goes to you, Nayara. So your venue is part of this platform that is hosting the events that we are having this panel in the context of today, Liveurope, which is an EU-funded organization. Why is this type of project maybe a chance for live music operators to do better in the future? Do you see a potential to grow this kind of initiative in the future?
It's a very simple question to answer, because it works. because Liveurope works. It works because the numbers speak by themselves. So the platform actually the aim we achieve it every year, and every year we grow bigger on the INAs, on the bands that we put on our stages. This work, we have been doing it before, because actually all these venues have been programming European emerging talent, but it has always been hard. So Liveurope encourages us to do it more and to do it better, and with the mechanism, the bonus mechanism that is unique actually right now, what you want to do is you want to do more and more. So it's like something, it's like saying, we're doing good our job. So Liveurope now for us has become much more than only a platform. We are a network, we are friends, we really exchange good practices, we exchange bands, we give calls to each other when we have problems. Hey, how do you deal with this? Or what about this band? Or what? So actually, I think it would be much richer if more venues can come into the platform and make this work even bigger, because it's fantastic. I mean, it works.
It works, doesn't it?
It
So
works.
targeted mechanisms like this, bonus mechanisms from EU funding, definitely does the job. I mean, at a small scale, but does the job for venues. I'm curious to have Virgo's perspective in terms of, providing other types of incentives for the cross-border circulation of artists and works. Virgo, you recently co-authored a study that has been published by the European Commission on a European export strategy. Can you very briefly, because we're lagging behind in time, give us some of the ideas that came out of this study to complete what Nayara has said in terms of supporting the venues?
I would then only maybe refer to the actual strategy part. The project you mentioned, the commission, the study that was published, has several parts to it, from research and stock taking, etc. But in the end, we presented with a pretty practical approach of a development path of 6 steps of development that we think should be supported in each step by European programs that are targeted to the needs of how to help European music to be better exported towards European borders. And I would just name these steps. So the logic is that first we learn, we gather new information, we study the new markets and also the ways to enter these markets, and we do it on a coordinated fashion on a European level. We grow the capacity to actually, go there and then be able to go there, and then we need to grow that across European level, because there are strong imbalances between countries, has been referred to us before as well. And then we really need to help boost the crossing of borders, first inside Europe, but then also outside Europe. Basically, we have to remember that European music export also happens within Europe. And for most European countries, export starts when going even to a neighboring European country, not only outside of Europe. So we need to keep this logic in mind and have programs that boost and help and support these actions, both within Europe and outside. And finally, we need to have measures in place to measure the impacts of these tools that we have. Tailor-made solutions have been mentioned a lot, and I'm a great believer in tailor-made solutions. Good tailors need to take good measures so that they can make good suits. And I think this is a strong gap that has been outlined and underlined within the crisis as well, that we need way better statistics, way better understanding, conceptual-wise, and etc. of music sector in order to build these programs, to implement them well. And in terms of the overall boosting of European music export, I think, as mentioned before, the new call for tenders disclosed yesterday, implementing steps to develop and promote European music export, will be key to unlocking many of these tailor-made programs that we can then pilot, by different kinds of organizations within the European music export community. So again, it's an ongoing process. I tend to finish all my interventions with that, but hopefully we'll get more answers soon as we progress towards these steps.
So thank you very much, Virgo. And one of the things that I'm taking from this set of proposals that you put on the table is really the measuring part. So we can do a lot of things at European level. We can support, we can give some funding. Live Europe is a good example that this kind of funding works, but also as you use this fashion analogy, a good tailor, in order to have good tools to support a good tailor, needs good measures. This is the perfect transition, the measuring part, to my next question to you, Jean-Philippe Thiellet. The CNM, among its first set of activities, has launched an observatory for the French music sector. And you can tell us a little bit about this in the context of the fact that the European Commission is soon going to publish a feasibility study on a similar initiative at European level for something that would collect and analyze data on the sector at European level. So my question to you is simple. Why is this kind of tool so important in the long term for the resilience of the music sector?
Yeah, that's the first point mentioned by the law of the 30th of October 2019, so almost 1 year ago. First mission of the CNM is to observe, to analyze, to create a kind of think tank about the music in France. And I'm absolutely convinced that to address the issues of the sector, we have to know what we are talking about. How many people are working in that? How many revenues does it represent? There is, for instance, in France, one report made by EY that say more or less it's 10 billion euros in France, the music, from the instruments factory to the streaming industry, and more or less 300,000 people are working in the music industry, but it's really not so precise. So the music observatory inside the CNM, the starting point is the economic point of view, because we have a tax on the ticketing, so we know exactly how many people attend shows and how many money does it represent. But it's not enough. We have to go further, because the knowledge is a key pillar of any politics in the music industry. Very artistic in a certain point of view. But when we have to fight for money, to fight for legislation, you have to be strong in the argumentation. So the copyrights, the neighboring rights, the digital revenues, and I really appreciate what Commissioner Gabriel said about the rights of the artist and all the professional. Music is not only passion, it's a job, and it's really important to defend that. I mentioned the digital revenues. We are now finishing a study on user-centric system versus the actual system. I think it's a French issue, but it could be, I know that in Germany, people are talking a lot about that, and even maybe in the States. So I would mention as well the knowledge of foreign markets. I guess that Virgo will appreciate that. We have to know better what to do and where to sustain our artists, of course French and French-speaking artists, but European artists above all. So this observatory, the beginning exists in the CNM, but we will go further in the next months and in the next year. I hope that Europe Creative could help us to build a kind of network in Europe, and the CNM would really be part of that, to encourage the university as well to put to ask for research, to build new people in the university, to work on the economy, on the sociological point of view, the geographical point of view. We don't have enough people in the universities working on the music industry, and that's really an interesting. So if you can hear me, think about it. There is job, there is really fascinating subjects, and we can use that. So And maybe to conclude, you asked, will we be stronger in the future? I don't know. But one more thing concerned me really. I read that in several countries, more or less 40% of the artists and people working in music are thinking about changing job and give up. So I will mention the Peter Gabriel's, not Mariya Gabriel, but Peter Gabriel's song, Don't Give Up, because we need you. As well, in France, I know we have something to help you. I hope that it's the same in Europe. I'm not sure about that, but please don't give up, because we really need artists and musicians in our societies. That's why I'm fighting every day. I'm sure that everyone here will agree with that.
Thank you, Jean-Philippe Thiellet, for this message of hope. I think that after everything that has been said today, and all the solutions that have been put on the table, and all the positivity and the fighting spirit, even in situations where there's no measures to help in the emergency times that we are living, this fighting spirit and this spirit of not giving up has definitely been conveyed to our audience on Facebook Live. A last word, maybe, because we're really running out of time, I'm afraid. A last word by MEP Verheyen. So you mentioned in your last intervention the fact that there's going to be a sectorial action on music in the next generation of the funding programs of the EU, which is a very, novel thing, and it's unprecedented. So the music sector will have a dedicated funding line for the first time in the history of the European Union. This reminds me of a quote by one of the founding fathers of the EU, Jean Monnet, who said, and I quote him, if I had to do it again, I will start with culture. So Ms. Verheyen, first of all, do you agree with Jean Monnet? And second of all, what do we do to reflect his spirit in the next few years? And we'll finish on this.
I just can subscribe what Jean Monnet said. It is very crucial that we see that the European Union is more than a business club. The European Union is a community of values, and how can we better reflect our culture, our history, our being human than with music, because music is a language that is understood everywhere in the world, and that can build bridges between people, between countries, between nations. And that's the reason why I think he's absolutely right, that we should take more into the center of European politics, also the question of culture and also the question of music. With just one word, I would like to support what Jean-Philippe said. What is very important is that we see on the one hand the tremendous meaning of music and culture to our societies, but we also see that it's not just a soft factor, but it's also a hard factor, an economical factor. And I always say these 4.2% of the GDP is not nothing, it's a lot. But we need concrete figures for the different sectors to make clear to those who decide in future on the allocation of money and the allocation of funds, how important it is also from the economical side, because the European Union is funded like it is as an economic club, but it's more, like I said, but we have to bring closer also the economic factor. Many artists, many people working in these sectors are very keen on underlining how important the sector is for us as human beings, for our democracies, for our societies. But we have to bring forward in future, especially in the crisis, also the economical meaning of the sector, to get the support the sector needs and to get the place the sector needs. And that is something what I also want to underline. We have to work together, cross-sectorial in the cultural and creative industries, to have the power compared like other industrial sectors to also to give pressure to those who decide on budgets, on budget lines, and on the future. And it would help also would support our work in the Cultural Committee in the European Parliament if we can go together forward loud and with the right awareness to the needs of the sector, and also the meaning of the sector for our societies and for our economy. And I hope that we can bridge it and that we stand together like we stood together when it came to the discussions on copyright. There we had an alliance between all cultural and creative sectors to push forward for a fair and balanced approach in the legislation. You know, it was not easy. We had big powers against the legislation at that time. And I think if we stand together also when it comes to support and to the recovery for the cultural and creative sector in the next years, if we stand together, I think I have the hope and I believe in that we get a better future for the sector than we had it in the past.
Thank you so much, Sabine Verheyen, for those inspiring words of hope. Let's not give up. Let's fight together, first as a sector and second as cultural and creative industries standing together to try and make sure that the next phase of the European Union is a more cultural and a more creative European Union. And I think, you know, much of what was said today reflects this hope. I wanted to just tell you, we won't have the time to take additional questions. Some of the questions that we received on the chat, I tried to integrate in the conversation today. So some of those questions have been answered already. But because we're running out of time, we're already behind schedule. I will now thank the panelists very much. Nayara Lassa, thank you so much for your input and for your insights. Good luck with the rocky road ahead, and we hope that the Liveurope platform will continue supporting you and grow this enthusiasm stronger. Virgo Sillama, thank you very much. Good luck with your new endeavors. Jean-Philippe Thiellet, thank you, and I hope that the CNM will have a long life and a rich life. And Sabine Verheyen to finish with, thank you again. Thank you for your work at the European Parliament for the cultural and creative sectors. Let's be hopeful, optimistic. I will give back the floor now to the organizers of this event at the Liveurope platform. I'm Fabien Miclet. It was a pleasure to be with you, and I hope to see you all very soon.
Thank you very much, Fabien, for this fantastic conclusion. And thank you also to our speakers for bringing a light on the perspectives to rebuild our sector with such flair and brio. So we are now reaching the end of our conversation, but not the end of our festival. So I would like to take this moment to address a few acknowledgements to the many organizations and people who have made our event possible. So first, I'd like to address my most sincere gratitude to our Liveurope venues, who, despite the challenges brought on by the pandemic, have really given their all to build this fantastic cross-border program together. I'd like also to thank our partners who have helped us bring our event to the next level. And I'd like also to thank the 25 speakers and 12 emerging European artists that have been nurturing our program with their point of views, their vision, and later tonight, their musical talents. So I have a final message for our audience, who I would also like to thank for following us during those 2 days, that I would like to invite you to the final part of our program. It's a free concert with 12 emerging European artists that will be simultaneously streamed from our Facebook page and on the Facebook page of all our members and partners. And yeah, this won't be your regular concert live stream. You can expect quite a few surprises. So yeah, tonight, join us and you'll get to travel to Oslo, to Warsaw, to Prague, Amsterdam, and many more countries right from the comfort of your couch, or from your car if you're stuck in traffic, or from your line at the supermarket. So yeah, tune in, 5 p.m. Central European time zone. And yeah, just grab your favorite drink and yeah, get to discover some of the most promising European talents of tomorrow and hear some fun facts about our venues. Thanks again, and see you then. Bye.